views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, it is time for the Bronx Buzz. This is the program where we talk to journalists, Bronx journalists, and maybe a little bit around the Bronx to get an idea of what they're talking about, what they're thinking about, what they're writing about, give you a little greater insight into the issues that affect all of us. And to start off the show, we kind of have breaking news and real good insight into where we are at with one of the most controversial projects in the Bronx, and that is the Jerome Avenue zoning. So I am going to go downtown via Skype and say hello to our good buddy Abigail Savitch-Lew, who has covered this extensively. Nice to have you with us, Abby.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Abby, of course, with City Limits, and we were just talking before the show, I thought it was brilliant that my friend Jarrett and the editor of City Limits and all you folks put together a whole zoning unit so that we could cover all the zonings in New York City, of course, including our home borough of the Bronx. So Abby, yesterday was a significant day in the history of this project, but why don't you give us a general picture of where we are at and why this is such an important week with all the zonings in New York City.
Sure, yeah. So there are about a dozen rezonings, neighborhood rezonings that we are following at our site, zonein.org. And this week, the fifth neighborhood rezoning entered the public review process, and that was a rezoning in Inwood that entered the public review process on Tuesday. And then yesterday, the first one in the Bronx, the Jerome Avenue rezoning, was approved by the City Planning Commission, moving it to the City Council. So basically, there's just a lot of momentum, and you could say that, you know, almost half, basically, of the rezonings, of the de Blasio rezonings, have entered into the public review process, which means, like, you know, a serious number of these rezonings have gained momentum.
It's kind of a big moment in time for the entire concept. So out of the two, I guess that's what we're talking about. They've both been approved, and that is the news that the City Planning Commission approved the zoning proposal, the rezoning of Jerome Avenue, right? That's the biggest news we've got.
That's right. And just to clarify, in Inwood, they're just starting the approval process.
Oh, I see.
Yes, in the Bronx, yes, the City Planning Commission approved it, but that means that now the proposal moves to the City Council because they have the ultimate vote.
The final word. You know, the main question, and I know all the people who live in that area and people who have advocated both for and against this thing, the main questions have revolved around not necessarily the specifics, but the kind of amenities and the other things around it. Will there be park improvements? Will there be new seats for schools? Will there be protections for tenants? And these things, in many cases, you know, get kind of a rubber stamp, but as I understand from your writing, not everybody was on board and says this is all going so swimmingly.
Yeah, I'd say that there are groups like the Bronx Coalition for Community Vision that maintain a lot of concern about the proposal, particularly the concerns that encouraging development in this area by allowing bigger buildings in this area, as the rezoning would do, would basically set off a development frenzy that would lead to gentrification and the displacement of residents as well as auto businesses. The city really doesn't think that's going to happen. The city thinks that this is going to lead to the creation of a lot of income targeted or affordable housing. There are, you know, the community boards, the borough president, they all had their own concerns, even though they approved the rezoning, but, you know, they expressed concerns about, you know, needing more resources for preservation of existing affordable housing and needing more strategies to help auto businesses if they are displaced from the area and some other things like that.
These are the concerns that have been raised since the first day that this entire thing has been proposed. I mean, there's no question about that. What were before we even get into some of those specifics, what were the numbers like? As I understand, at least from your writing, and I'm looking at it, that there were 2 commissioners who voted against the proposal. What's the total number of commissioners that sit on the Planning Commission?
Usually 13. Actually, Commissioner Cantor passed away a few months ago, so right now 12.
Right.
And so actually only one commissioner voted against.
One commissioner,
one was absent.
that was Michelle Della Uz, who voted
right.
against. And her concerns were the same concerns that have been expressed. And it's very fascinating because Orlando Marin, who represents the borough president on the commission, just like you said, he voted for it, but still expressed those same concerns. The borough president has been talking about the potential loss of auto businesses and jobs, the need for more school seats, the importance of continued conversations about non-displacement for the auto workers and job training and all those kinds of things. So how do you read all that? We voted for it, but yet we still want to see these things.
Yeah, I mean, as with all the other previous rezonings, often what happens is these rezonings move to the city council, and meaning because the city council has the final say. And at that point, the local council members do a lot of negotiating, and they try to push for certain things that maybe the borough president said that would be a good idea, or the city planning commission said it would be a good idea. And so I think that the borough president and the city planning commission, a lot of these other leaders have faith, I guess, that council members Vanessa Gibson and council member Fernando Cabrera will negotiate something with the administration that at the end of the day they will feel okay about.
Well, I have one council member on the record, and the other council member, another council member in the Bronx delegation, I spoke to off the record, so I won't give his or her name, but on the record, Vanessa Gibson said on Bronx Talk that she will demand that these commitments are made before anything is done. Now that means there could be some sort of showdown when it gets to the city council, because if she holds to that word that she said on Bronx Talk, then she's going to make sure that those things are in place, as opposed to what the City Planning Commission. The other council member, and I, as I said, I won't reveal the name, the other council member said to me, we've got to have expansion of schools. We've absolutely got to. This is not going to happen without the expansion of schools. Well, those of us in the Bronx, and I've got a whole litany of projects. Promises, I guess. I don't know what else to say at this point. It really will be a fascinating dialogue in the new city council as it proceeds.
I totally agree. I guess I'm sure that they will negotiate some good benefits for the community. The question is just how much, right? And everyone will be watching to see.
You know what's fascinating to me in the dialogue about the expansion of schools, and you reported on PS 33. They would have the expansion of an existing annex. And this is a personal thing for me. A lot of times they use up the schoolyards for these expansions. Well, where are you expanding the school? It means taking away play space. Now, I have been on that area at PS 33 many times and saw kids running and playing in those schoolyards. I realize you need school seats. I would be very fearful about, the loss of that play space for those kids. I may be the only one in the Bronx, but I think that play space is as important as school seats in terms of the growth and development of those kids. That's just me. Who knows?
Yeah, balancing open space with schools. There's so many
things involved. One of the other questions, a local 40 iron worker, as you reported, was concerned about non-union labor. Is there any indication, was there any discussion today or yesterday about the notion of union workers or non-union workers being part of these projects?
Yeah, I mean, I remember earlier in the fall, I had a conversation with Councilmember Gibson, and she did say that, well, we've made a lot of progress. We have this new safety construction bill that just passed. So we are, we are mandating more safety training across the board. But no, we can't require union labor. We do have a program now. I'm just trying to quote what she said, or summarize what she said.
Yes, I understand.
Basically, we do have a program now that encourages local hiring for projects that are subsidized by the city. We can't mandate local hiring. So I feel like there's, I think that this construction workers concerns, if he's worried about, the project being non-union, I really don't know if I could assure him that it would be.
What the resolve is. We're getting close to the end of our time for this conversation. What is your sense with the new city council? Now we have a new city council speaker, and my conversations with city council members is like they're really excited and say he listens to the members, he empowers the members. Do you have a sense of how this might play in the new city council as different from previous ones with, for example, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito?
Honestly, we are really curious.
Because, okay. This will be.
We're looking into this.
Yeah, this will really be a good test case, because this is as controversial and cuts right to the core of the nature of the dialogue of land use. And of course, Councilmember Salamanca just appointed the chair of the Land Use Committee. So in summary, can you give us a little timeline of what might be next?
Sure, yeah. So in the next 2 months, there will be a hearing that Bronx residents can go to at the city council downtown and give their perspective on the Jerome Avenue rezoning. And then, yes, within the next 2 months, the city council will have to take action. They will have to vote, and that's when the council members will be negotiating.
I have to tell you, first of all, Abby, your work on this is so vital to the people of the Bronx, because you're right there when stuff happens and reporting to us as wonderfully and as thoroughly as you do. And the second thing I just will comment on is this cuts right to the core. Will the city listen to what advocates say? And if they do listen to what they say, will they implement some of this stuff? And will the city council members fight and say no until some of that stuff is done? Maybe not. Won't evaluate from here what's for the good or for the bad, but it's really fascinating, I guess, is my conclusion on that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again for having me.
Abigail Savitch-Lew from the city limits. Say hello to Jarrett and all my friends down there. And thanks for joining us today on the Bronx Buzz. We'll see you soon. Okay, we right now we're going to take a short break, and we'll take a break, and then we're going to come back with one of our buddies who has been with us a number of times on this program, José Martínez from Noticias, Long Island, and he's got some very interesting things to say about immigration and DACA and a whole bunch of other stuff he hasn't even told me what he wants to talk about yet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, faster!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
of our favorite guests since we started this show a couple of years ago, and he's back here for more. I can't imagine why. It's José Martínez from Noticias. He comes all the way from Long Island to come out here to the BX. Nice to have you with us again.
Thank you very much for the invitation. You know, it's always a pleasure to be here.
The perspective that you bring, because you work on a Spanish TV show, Noticias Long Island, is really through the immigrant community. You talk to immigrants all the time. This is a time that is fraught with danger for immigrants, and we hear about the breaking up of families. We hear about a negotiation with the so-called dreamers, the DACA young people. Where are we at? How do you read what's going on in the federal government and how it will play into the future?
Well, we thought the problem was 2016, and it wasn't. And then we thought, okay, let's see if we can finish 2017. And we're in 2018 with more problems. So I feel like the community is really scared. And
people are scared. This is what you've reported to us all along.
Yeah, like we've been talking about it the entire 2017. People were getting more scared as the year was passing on. Right now we have 800,000 undocumented immigrants who are, like thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow if, I don't have any
protected status or status.
Yeah, I don't have any, and I'm talking about DACA. This are students and people who have been buying houses and business, and they have employees. So there's all this behind this news of the immigration, like, 800,000, but these people are working, they're making lives. And right now they have to wait until March, pretty much, to see what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm. In terms of kind of looking at the population as a whole, the negotiations that are going on in Washington have been, at least as the way it's been reported to all of us, is in essence a trade-off. That the president and leaders in Congress are saying, well, then let's trade, and they're blaming the Democrats for the negotiations falling apart. Does it make sense to trade something like, and I'm just going to bring it up because it's been circulated in the media, trade funding for building a wall in exchange for allowing the Dreamers or some other negotiated exchange so that the DACA residents can stay?
Garrett, this is a very tricky situation. This is how I see it. And it's like the community wants a permit for these people once granted, or they want these people to become citizens. But the Democrats are not really into this wall, and that's the tricky part. One thing is what people are saying on the streets. The other thing is what the Democrats are ready to give up, and tell the president, yeah, okay, you win with this wall, which is, for him, the biggest thing he can do.
Right.
And the Democrats don't want to do that. They don't want to give them that. But there's all these people who are waiting for an answer.
So it is an ironic trade, because on one hand you're saying, well, then let's support immigrants, let's support people to be citizens. On the other hand, then you're saying, in exchange for doing that, we're going to build a wall which will, keep out immigrants, of course, not to mention the cost and everything else. My sense, and I'm going to editorialize here, and which shows you why I would never be an elected official, I wouldn't negotiate it, because I would say that the principle of what the Dreamers deserve is more important, and it should not be negotiated upon. That in and of itself is worth preserving. To me, and you can tell me how you see this, and you may be closer to the immigrant community than I am, what we really need to do is establish, which the Congress has fought over for years and years, a path to citizenship. We do not have a logical, attainable path to citizenship. To me, that's what should be negotiated over, because if you do, then you can solve all the problems. And maybe that path to citizenship will be more difficult than some would like. I'd rather the negotiation be on that, because that is a positive step, than saying yes for them and yes, no for this, that kind of thing. So that's my editorial.
I will vote for you.
You
know why?
I said I wasn't going to run for office.
No, but if you do
campaign.
it, I'm sure a lot of people, that are watching the show right now, and they see you as a white person who are very capable of understanding the struggles of the immigrant community and the minorities in this country, We need more people to know those issues.
Prior to Trump becoming president, and even prior to Obama, and I remember it through the, and it was actually what John McCain ran on when he ran for president, was a dialogue. Can we establish a path to citizenship? And now all of a sudden the dialogue, of course, has crossed the border. How ironic that I said something like this. Do you have any, I'm just asking your own thoughts, any idea of how this is going to play? There's no way to know.
There's no way to know. You know, with President Trump, you're literally waking up to a different reality. And I've read many of your opinions on Facebook talking about how, you know, we are in a time where we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I feel like if you're living here as a citizen or as a permanent resident, you can survive. But there's many people, not only the people with DACA and the people with TPS, but there are many other temporary protected ways that people are staying in the country. And we talk about 800,000, we talk about 200,000 Salvadorans, but there are more people that are in a situation married with U.S. citizens, and they can't become not even a permanent resident.
This gang on Long Island, a Salvadorian gang, to me, that is used as an excuse to say, aha, these are the people. Now, listen, there's no excusing their behavior. There's no excusing their
no, and the community wants them out.
Of
they
course,
want them out.
But that is a lot different than other people who have been here peacefully and productively for many years, obviously.
That's right.
You told me an interesting story, a political story, and people in the Bronx maybe can relate to this, about the Nassau County executive. Now, Nassau County is a largely Republican county, but a Democrat was just voted in as county executive.
Yeah.
Give us a little background here in the BX and what the relevancy is.
Talking about the wall, well, I told you last year there's a wall between Queens and Nassau County. So you can cross literally to a Republican South-minded idea of this part so close to New York City. And they've been Republicans for more than 20 years. And this is the first time in 25 years that we have in Nassau County a Democrat and a woman who's not even a U.S. born. She's a U.S. citizen, of course. She was born in Canada. So this county is pretty much saying, or sending a message to President Trump, who went to Long Island last year during his campaign, to show them that, you know, this is a Republican part of the country, and you're going to stay like that.
Why did she get elected? What did she have that was appealing to voters who traditionally would not vote in that direction?
Well, the former Nassau County executive, Ed Mangano, was in such a big problem last year, in a big controversy. He ended up in jail with corruption charges. So literally, people were like, "Okay, we have to get away from this."
If that's your choice, it's it's almost like a choice that happened in Alabama. Even if they didn't necessarily agree with the Democrat, the charges against the Republican, the personal charges, was so much stronger.
Yeah,
so you think it was that?
I think so. And then I spoke with the Laura Curran. She's the Nassau County executive, and she is really close to the communities, minority communities. So I think she moved a lot of those votes that weren't voting before Trump. That was a big change in Nassau County and Suffolk County, and I'm sure here in the city too. But that was the key there. People were like, we need to put someone that can help us, that can be on our side.
What are the implications of her taking office in Nassau County for the future? I mean, we've just analyzed why she got there, but the question is, what will this mean for Nassau County? Do you think it will lean policies and other things toward the left, or is she going to basically listen to constituents and, kind of she will move to the right to feed what their interests are?
Well, according to what she says, she's going to stay in the middle because she has
because of the reasons I just explained.
Exactly. She has a large population. Yeah, she has a large population of Republicans, but she also has a lot of immigrants who are establishing, moving out of New York City and moving to Long Island. So for her to be part of that conversation, she needs to be on their side.
What are I got another question I want to ask you about related to this issue. What are the issues out there that potentially are fraught with red or blue in either direction.
Well, basically, they don't want to be like New York City. Nassau County, in Suffolk County, they've seen, this is history, they've seen how many parts of the city have become, I don't want to use that word, but they've used that word that the president just used the past week. So for them, when they compare that in conversations, public conversations, they don't want to become Long Island as part of the city.
They maintain themselves as distinctive. And I can understand, or I can see that from people I know from Long Island. They have a certain image of themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Last thing I want to ask you before we get out of here. I saw a story, I think it was, it might have been on MSN. It was one of these news feeds that said the Department of Justice was considering arresting officials of sanctuary cities, which would mean that someone like Bill de Blasio or even our own borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr., could be in danger. This seems like insane to me from a party that has always fought for states' rights, and now all of a sudden they don't kind of like what the states' rights or what their individual states or cities are doing, and now they're going to say they'll throw them in jail. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's
or
not
did I already just say it?
I think you said it, but I don't think anything will happen. We've seen how the Republican Party have been trying to put this whole anti-immigrant sentiment, but the people are actually, some of them are waking up. What you said when you were saying that you're not going to run for office, I think that's what we want to see, and that's what they're actually bringing to the public.
Is people
who have been quiet for their lives because nothing happened. They've seen how their friends and some family members are in danger.
We're coming to a fascinating time in American politics because there is, on one side, tremendous support for the president, almost instinctive support. Anytime he says what he says, even if it doesn't appear to be appropriate, they put it aside because they support him and his agenda. On the other side, there is, of course, a growing population of people saying, wow, what did we do? We put this man in office. And so now we're going to really find out, I think. We didn't find out the last election, but in 2018, the end of this year, we're going to find out what America really thinks. And it's probably not going to be quiet.
Yeah, it's going to be changing. It is changing right now, and people are acknowledging.
How can we see what you do on Long Island?
Because
José, you got to check him out. He's tremendous.
Well, you can follow me at José Martínez. That's my Instagram, my Facebook, everything. José Martínez, and you can also go to noticiasli.com and you find the show and everything there.
Listen, José, we love the fact that you come here to the BX because it kind of broadens our perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And guess what that all means? If you wrap it up in a package, now you can put a bow on it because we're going to say goodnight. We will see you next time on the Bronx Buzz. Monday night on Bronx Talk, we will have Councilmember Rafael Salamanca, and he will talk about land use and all those issues, some of which we discussed actually earlier on the program. So we'll see you then. Good night.
From your first sunrise to the sunset of life, we are with you through life's journey. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. Visit socialsecurity.gov.
This video produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.